Hello everyone, this is a day in the life of a Linux user, December the 11th, 2010, episode number 7. Okay, I'm just going to start off with a little preamble. Even though I call the show a day in the life of a Linux user, the show isn't just about one operating system. I talk about all operating systems, but predominantly I am a Linux user. Even so, my belief is we do not yet have an ideal operating system. So, I'm going to start off with some remarks about Plan 9 OS. The Plan 9 has a mascot, Glenda, the Plan 9 bunny. I'm just going to go over a couple other points. It supports a wide variety of platforms, x86, MIPS, DEC Alpha, Spark, PowerPC, ARM. Plan 9 has a hybrid kernel based on combining aspects of microkernel and monolithic kernel architectures. Nearly all operating system services are in kernel space. Okay, I'd just like to talk a little bit about applications. There's the Acme and SAM file editors. You really need a mouse with 3 buttons. Basically, when I'm doing it, I'm using the scroll wheel as the 3rd button, so I'm actually pressing down on the scroll wheel as a button. I compiled a Hello World application, like a simple programming example on Plan 9. Plan 9 uses PCC instead of GCC, so anyway, the arguments are the same, something like PCC space hello.c space -o space hello, and then that gets you your executable. I was able to SSH into my Linux server from Plan 9, and I also managed to get the web browser Abaco, ABACO. Managed to get that working. I had to first run something called WebSF, and then another program called Web Cookies in the terminal, and then I was able to surf to my own web page and to Google. I'll just quickly go over a few of the commands that are the same in Plan 9 in Linux. There's ls, du, mount, and unmount, and I'll just make a quick comment that the n is included. Like under Linux, we'd just type in umount, but you actually put the n in the unmount. So for example, you could mount and unmount a CD. Page is a general purpose image viewer. It can view PostScript and PDF files and image files. I did some playing around with video modes. In Plan 9, I can switch to 320 by 200 mode, and the way I did that was I type at the terminal. I type in AUX/VGA space -L space 320x200x16, and then you get a huge. Your fonts end up being huge. I'm just I'm just quickly remarking on that because I've never been able to set 320 by 200 mode in Linux, and normally it's something you'd probably never do. But out of curiosity, like VESA, just to go over VESA briefly, VESA does include that as a standard mode. 320 by 200 is a standard VESA mode. So if you're using the VESA driver under Linux, and you would think then it should be possible to set 320 by 200, but there's some other additional limitation, something to do with the X window manager, that it won't let you do that. When you actually click on various different modes, like let's say I'm using the VESA driver on some Linux system, the standard modes usually are stuff like 1024 by 768, 800 by 600, and 640 by 480, and you don't see 320 by 200. Sometimes you'll see 320 by 240, but not 320 by 200. And it's just, I think it's a little bit significant because some old DOS games used it, and I would, if you were using DOSBox, to do to play some old DOS games, then you would be able to use the full screen instead of having black bars at the top and the bottom. I had to switch. Okay, that's all for Plan 9 for now. I had to do something on the vector box. I had to switch from the Radeon driver to the Vesta driver. Something's wrong with the Radeon driver on this version of Vector Linux. It's not. I don't think it's Vector Linux's fault. I don't think it's Vector Linux's fault. It's something to do because when I switched from the Radeon driver to the Vesta driver, it fixed the problem completely. Although my video updates were slightly slower, it wasn't. I'd rather have it working properly. So that's something you might want to try if you're having problems and you don't care. You know, if you're just using a Linux box and you don't really care about 3D acceleration, just switch to the Vesta driver just to check it out, just to see if it fixes your problem. I managed to fix my problem by doing that. Okay, I just want to go over a few Linux device drivers that I've used. I've used Intel. I've used Radeon, which is the from ATI, and I've used the Vesta driver. You can actually pass something that a lot of people might not be aware of, that you can pass kernel parameters to the kernel command line, and you'll find those options in /boot /grub /menu.lst or menu list. If you want to learn more about the Linux kernel parameters, you should read /usr /src /linux /documentation /kernel-parameters.txt. And I'll just give you a quick example. VGA equals ask will give you a menu to choose a video mode for the console. Now I just got to reiterate, I'm using Vector Linux with KDE 3.5.10, and I just did a few experiments with it. I got more of my special keys to work under Linux, and I used the control center, and then I went to regional and accessibility, and then I went to keyboard layout, and I set the keyboard layout to Logitech cordless desktop LX-300. I actually have a Logitech Telemax cordless keyboard, and there were still a few keys that that didn't seem to do anything, but it's fairly simple to map those other keys to applications, which is what I ended up doing. So stuff like hitting the refresh button in the browser, you can do that on the keyboard, and increasing or decreasing the volume, or hitting mute, I can do that from the keyboard. I can use the arrow keys. There's actually two sets of left and right arrow keys on my keyboard. I can use that to go back. When I'm in Firefox, I can use those keys to go back or forward, just like you would if you clicked on the little icon inside Firefox to go, left to right, backward or forward. I commented a while back on the fact that most PC keyboards don't have a help button. However, this Logitech cordless keyboard actually does have a help button. It double works the F1 function key as it's also labeled as a help button. And that help button actually will work in Firefox. If you hit F1, you'll get help while you're in Firefox. Also, F3 activates the find feature in Firefox, and then you can hit escape to get out of that. And then the point is that you're always using the keyboard to do this. And there's also a little button on the keyboard that looks like a house, and it will take you to your home page while you're in Firefox. So that's pretty neat. I'll just describe it a little bit more. The first two buttons on the top left corner of the keyboard act like the left and right buttons in Firefox, and there's actually two sets of them. there's a third button. The third button down actually acts similar to Alt Tab. So you could do an Alt, the same thing with Alt Tab as you can do with this one button, and you can use this as a way of shifting from one application to another, sort of in a round robin method. The original Amiga 1000 also had a help button, but it had no built-in functionality in Amiga DOS, so you had to just program it yourself. Like say if you wrote a program, you could just program it to be the help button. Okay, I did a little bit of research on laptops that support Linux, or OEMs that actually support Linux, and after about an hour of messing around on the internet, I came to the conclusion that this is pretty hard to find. I looked at the Dell Inspiron 1018, and okay, so I'm going to this webpage, http://linux.dell.com, and you expect to see some Linux computers, and sure enough, there is one, the Dell Mini 1018. But as soon as you click on anything else on that Dell site, like you want to click on the technical specs on that on the Dell Mini 1018, you get this little sign popping up that says Dell recommends Windows 7. Okay, so I just got tired of that, and I'm going, well, like, am I paying the Windows tax? Am I paying the Microsoft tax or not? Like, I didn't even want to put that to the test. So anyways, what I do now is I research the hardware as much as possible, and I check out web pages like coreboot.org, and if I'm looking for used stuff, I go to ebay.com, and I just do general searches on the internet. Like, I just check to see what hardware is documented. Websites like Intel, LinuxGraphics.com. Check out video hardware. Now, people have remarked to me that they say that Intel video chips are slow, but they may be slow, but they might not be as fast as some of the other ones on the market. But they are very well documented, which is why generally you'll see good driver support for Linux graphics chips and Intel graphics chips on the internet, because Intel has actually done a pretty good job of documenting everything. Now, the other thing I sometimes do is schools auction off their old computers, and I might pick up an old computer there. Sometimes I get old used computers from customers. So yeah, that's what I found. Like, the other thing I did was I got used Panasonic Toughbook, and it did support Fedora 10, and it worked really well. I don't really have a good solution. I don't really have good advice for if you're buying a laptop. Like, a lot of people, programmers might look at that and say, okay, well, I don't even want a laptop, because I'm not going to program, on a laptop keyboard. I don't like it. But I was just thinking, it would be nice to, have be able to go out and buy a laptop where you don't have to pay the Windows tax or the Microsoft tax. I'm actually kind of getting really tired of looking through Dell's site and trying to find out where the heck is the Linux model, and then they maybe only have 2 different models, and you might not even like it. So yeah, I've really disappointed with Dell. There's no doubt about that. So I thought I was going to talk more about Core Boot, and I think I will actually make a few more remarks about Core Boot. I actually did. They're actually adding more motherboards to their list of motherboards that Core Boot support, And I should mention that I actually have some of the. I actually have one of the boards. I have a Gigabyte GA-6BXC. It's just sitting over there on the table. I just haven't quite got it going yet. I got an EEPROM programmer, and you can reprogram the flash ROM, and Core Boot actually supports quite a number of Asus and Gigabyte motherboards, and I would just recommend to anybody, and also Tyan motherboards, just go to coreboot.org and take a look at the list. There's quite a lot of boards that aren't supported, so definitely just check. One of the things I did was I just looked at the list. I wrote down a whole bunch of different ones I knew would work, and I went out and I deliberately got a board that would match up. There's other stuff like they're up to version 4 of Core Boot. They have I can tell you just briefly some of the Intel boards like D945 GCLF. That's got everything built onto the boards like video, sound, and the Intel CPU and Intel Graphics Media Accelerator 950. Yeah, you gotta be careful though, because you might have to use an external flash burner because the one that comes with the board will only work with crypto signed Intel BIOS images, so you have to be careful about that. There's Tiger i751R. They're actual S. They all have different numbers, like a S number. This one's S2735, and that's a socket 604. It's a 604-pin microprocessor socket designed to interface with Intel's Xenon processor. So, it's not the type of thing you're going to be able to figure out quick, but if you persevere, you can get a BIOS where you have the C source code, and then you could play around and possibly get another board working. And I know that sounds like it's really challenging, and it is time consuming. These guys are you can actually talk to them. They're pretty smart. They know a lot about hardware. You can go on IRC and talk to them on Freenode, and just go into Core Boot, the Core Boot channel, and they're pretty helpful. They're very nice people. They've helped me a lot. I've learned a lot about hardware from them, and it's just one of those niggling details that most of the time, almost all the time, you have a motherboard and then you don't have you don't have the source code to the BIOS, and you can't make changes to the BIOS. Now, in theory, you could add additional functionality, maybe even put the Linux kernel on your BIOS, to improve your boot up speed. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up there, and we'll leave it at that. There's a lot to learn, and every day you learn a little bit more, and that's the best you can do. So I'm going to wrap it up, and thanks for listening.